Welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I'm Amy Revell. I am the owner of The Art of Decluttering, and today's episode I'm really excited about. What I decided I wanted to do was speak about an issue that just fills my bucket, and the issue is around filling buckets. I was talking to one of my team, Freya, this morning, and she was sharing a story with me about when she's talking to her children. They talk about each person as having an invisible bucket. And when your bucket is full and overflowing, you speak kindly to people, you have resilience, there's extra. There's extra to love on people, and there's extra grace for others, there's extra grace for ourselves, and we feel confident and we feel good in ourselves, and our self-esteem is good, and we're making positive choices. Like that full bucket is exactly what we want for our children and for ourselves. And Freya and I were talking about it, that when someone speaks words to you that are untrue or nasty, or they ignore you or exclude you, it's like someone pokes a hole in your bucket. And so the way she talks to her children is you don't want to be people who poke holes in other people's buckets. And also, if someone pokes a hole in your bucket, how do you fill your bucket without there being holes? So how do you plug the holes? There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. I want to sing the whole 9 verses for you, but I will restrain. It's one of my favorite songs. I love the round and round and round of it because it's actually a simple solution. Like, there's a hole in my bucket. Henry, just fix the hole. We don't have to go around and around. And so what I want to talk to you today about is, do you have a full bucket? Is your bucket overflowing with gratitude and positivity and all of the things that we kind of want, that resilience? And what do you do when someone pokes a hole in your bucket? And why what we do at the Art of Decluttering is we want to be hole pluggers and bucket fillers. And so today's episode is really about those two things. How are we hole pluggers? Hole pluggers, it just sounds like a football term. And how are we bucket fillers? As the Art of Decluttering, right from our professional organisers through to courses we run and public workshops and speaking and podcasts and all the things that the Art of Decluttering does all around Australia and around the world, how can we help you to have a full bucket? I find so often when I'm working with clients is their bucket, they need to constantly be having their bucket refilled because there's like a leak that they're aware of, but like Henry in the song, they just don't know how to plug it. And so one of the things that the Art of Decluttering team love doing when we're with clients is helping to identify those holes. And so it may be that you've always been told, oh, you're so lazy, or you're not really good at organising, or you're always late, or your bedroom's always untidy, or why does your car always look like, it's a rubbish tip in the background, or why do you always leave your shoes on the floor? Why do you always have 6 mascaras and you're wasting our money? All of these things that we hear, we have our ears pricked for those because we want to say to you, okay, well, that's the behaviour. So, okay, we do understand that you do tend to leave your shoes on the ground. That doesn't make you intrinsically a bad person. So there's a couple of options. How are we going to plug that hole? So we can plug the hole with helping you modify behaviour. Okay, so what's the issue? Is the issue that you don't know where to put your shoes? There's not enough room where you put your shoes. If you put them away, you'll forget them. You need them easily accessible. Like, there's always more going on than just a pair of shoes on the ground or a towel on the floor or a kid's bedroom that's a bit untidy. So, okay, let's identify what that is. Is solving that problem if we put a shoe stand at the front door, if we have a particular pair of shoes that always live at the back door, or what are the solutions? Will that solution plug the bucket? And yes, maybe it will. Or maybe plugging the bucket looks like empowering a client to have a really honest conversation with the people that they live with and say, this is why I keep leaving a pair of shoes at the front door. It's because otherwise I feel stressed. I feel like I can't get out in a hurry, or it takes me so long and I always find that I get to the door and I've forgotten my shoes and it's just another step, and this is why it's helpful. And you might then negotiate and say, would it be okay with you if I kept one pair of shoes at the front door. Oh, yeah, of course. It's just one of these 12 pairs and I trip over them every time. And so we want to help fill that bucket and plug that hole. And even though it sounds so simple, it's a really important function of professional organising because we ask questions, we're interested, we want to help you unpack what's going on. I might be working with a client or our team's out with a client and they've got heaps of vases. And their stress point, their point where it's frustrating is, oh my goodness, I never have enough room for all these vases. But then we might say, well, do you use them all? Oh no, but I have to keep them because every time I look for one, I can't find one. So I definitely need them all. And so we might be able to unpack that they're probably not in the best place or they're spread out over the house. And so it's difficult to find them. We might be able to unpack that actually you really love buying flowers. You just never do because you put off buying them because you can't find the vase. So if you just had 3 vases that were always kind of on rotation, would you be more likely to buy flowers or more likely to enjoy the vases that you have? And so there's this interest and curiosity that comes with being a professional organizer where we want to be able to plug the holes that is draining your bucket. And other people might think, what do you mean someone's bucket might be drained by people complaining about their shoes or being stressed about finding a vase? But everyone's buckets is different. And so if we can help you to kind of plug some of those stress points, it means that when your bucket is filled, it doesn't have leaky spots everywhere. And professional organisers are not going to plug every leak. But it is important to us to find those places and help. We see you as a whole person. We don't just see your home that needs decluttering and organising. We see you. And one of the examples that I wanted to share with you of having a hole plugged and having a bucket filled was a client review that came through this week. It was, let me pull it up. So it was Freya and Lauren that went out this week and saw a new client, and the new client sent through an email and sent it through that afternoon. She says, I just want to put it out there that these 2 ladies, Lauren and Freya, are absolutely gorgeous. They work their butts off and the area that they've worked on is amazing. I highly recommend their work ethic and their personalities. Yep, I shed a few tears, but hey, I was allowed a hug and a cuddle, which I really appreciated. They didn't stop. They worked really to a high standard and to a high pace. We didn't get through everything. And then she talks about the areas that she wants to tackle in her next session. She says, it broke me to tears a couple of times watching 2 women do what I can no longer do for myself. So there's personal reasons and I can't remember the exact situation, but it may be disabilities that are restricting her from being able to do the work herself. Just thank you, Amy, for sending this 2-women team my way. And then she goes on to talk about the dates for her next booking. And this situation, this beautiful client had holes, which was, I can't physically do the work. And so the work isn't being done. And then every time you see, I think it was the garage they might have worked on, every time you see the garage, it's like there's just a drip out of that hole because you start to tell yourself stories like, well, I just can't get to that. I am so annoyed at my body for not doing what my mind wants it to do. I really should be able to do this on my own. And we can plug that hole because we can come in and in 4 hours transform a space, but also filling that bucket. Like when I loved it when she said, yep, I shed a few tears, but hey, I was allowed hugs and a cuddle. Like a professional organizer wants to fill your bucket. We want to speak words of life into you and over you. And this is part of the joy of what the art of decluttering does. Because in turn, when we help plug your holes and fill your bucket, you feel ours. You feel ours with your vulnerability, with your trust, with your fun, with your hard work, with your reliance on us, with your ability to reach out and say, hey, I need help, and value the work that we come and do with you. And that makes a big difference because professional organisers love people, right? Like we love people. It's not about stuff. We're awesome at dealing with the stuff, but we want to work with people. So I want to read you a review that was left for the podcast, right? So we obviously work with people in their homes, and you heard that review from the client earlier this week. I think we're, 20, 25 sessions a week out on the ground, seeing clients, and, we're 8 years in, 9 years in, and love it. That's not going anywhere. So I'm going to take a really super quick break, and then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about a podcast review that I received. So this podcast review came through. It's a 5-star review called Loving the Revamp, and it's from Joey Jojo 26. And they write, thoroughly enjoying the new version of The Art of Decluttering. Useful, practical tips and tricks, short and simple, but still with warmth and heart. I was a fan of the previous duo version of the podcast. I'm loving this more. I love how direct and how compact it is. I also love the artwork and the logo. It's a pleasure to look at, and it's a pleasure to listen to. Thank you, Amy and team. Now, our podcast, which obviously you're listening to, so this is, a little bit meta, but is about helping you plug the holes and about helping to fill your bucket. One of the things that Freya talked to me about this morning, she said that when she talks to her kids, she talks about not just having a full bucket, but the quality of the water. And so she said, if you've got a moldy bucket, if there's unforgiveness, if there's vindictiveness, if there's self-hatred or anger or jealousy, those things can make your bucket a bit moldy. And so what I also want to do through the podcast is help you kind of give the inside of that bucket a bit of a clean out, a bit of a swoosh around, so that you're constantly, reflecting on your own heart. And then what comes out of that bucket is helpful and useful and good. We can't control people around us. We can't control who tells the truth about us, who tells untruths about us. We can't control other people's anger, other people's expectations. But when we know that the inside of our bucket is clean, then it is good stuff that's splashing out and that we're pouring out and that we're overflowing for others. And so this podcast is part of that. I also wanted to just, as we finish up this episode, share with you. So I also want to say, if you want to read more reviews and you want to read more podcast reviews and you want to kind of just hear and see the work that the Art of Decluttering is doing on the ground each and every single day, then jump onto our website. You can have a look there, jump onto our social medias. You can see before and after photos and client reviews and podcast reviews and book reviews and all the different things of the actions and the activity that's happening in the hive that is the Art of Decluttering. And there's 3 values that underpin everything that my team and I do at the Art of Decluttering, and that's integrity, innovation, and community. And integrity is about acting with honesty and reliability without compromising the truth, right? So that's the inside of the bucket. We're acting with honesty, reliability without compromising the truth. And the innovation, pursuing creative ideas that have the potential to change the world. Like, we want to free you from the burden of clutter so that you can be world changers. We want the stuff that's overflowing, right? So if you think of your innovation as your encouragement and your creativity and your enjoyment of the simple things in life, having a meal with your family at the dinner table, being able to pick up a friend in your car because you're not ashamed of the inside, inviting a neighbor in for a cup of tea, all of that is about how do we have the overflow pure and full enough that you can overflow. And the 3rd value is community, developing a movement of people who discover and live in true freedom. And so much of that is about what comes into the bucket, but it's also about plugging those holes and being with like-minded people who have those values. I talked with Laurie a couple of weeks ago around our values. And you want to find people that not only have similar values, but that edify and encourage you in your values. And I'm so grateful to have the most incredible team at the Art of Decluttering that are passionate, that are tank fillers, that are overflowing, that are hole pluggers. I think I'm thinking it's an AFL football term, because was there a guy maybe that used to play called Plugger or Plucker or something like that? That's making me think football. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, is how do you have a bucket that's full, a bucket that's clean, and a bucket that is plugged from the holes that leak from it. What I am beyond excited about is next Monday we start our ADHD series all around helping people with ADHD, talking to people with ADHD, parents, children, ADHDers themselves, professionals that work with ADHDers. and making just some insights, tips, tricks, understanding around ADHD. It is going to be an incredible series. I've recorded 3 episodes so far, and I've got a couple to go. Whether you have ADHD or not, this series is going to rock your world, because ADHDers are really creative at finding hacks to declutter, organize, solve problems, create solutions, develop habits. And so you're going to get an insight into the minds of some incredible ADHDers. Some of them are professional organisers. Some of them have been clients of professional organisers. Some are, in additional fields that can help, like psychology, ADHD coaches. So don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe. And also, if you've got a friend who has ADHD or has a kid or a partner or a friend with ADHD, please let them know this series is coming up, because I don't want anyone to miss it. Just hit share on whatever app you're on now. And I would also want to thank you so much for how many reviews you guys are leaving for the podcast. It genuinely helps people to find the show. And so if you haven't left a review, let's say in the last 5 months, I would love you to jump into Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Genuinely, that is a great gift, and that will fill my bucket. That simple task is a real bucket filler for myself, for my guests, for my team. We get to share that in our team meetings. And so thank you. I am looking forward to being in your ears again next week to start the ADHD series. And until then, enjoy the freedom. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au, and I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.